Hello everyone. Sorry for this really strange setting this time. You cannot imagine the number of issues we had this semester and also to set up the stream. So I'm not even sure it will work, but I hope. So as every year, so this is like the last opportunity to have a discussion with the creator of the project in traditional game development before the launch of their game after the class. So the game is almost finished, just a few bugs to polish, and then the game will be available. And so, welcome, Shelter Story, correct?
Yes.
It's written. So, so I want to start by asking you like just a few words to describe a bit your project.
Yeah. So basically, Shoulder Story is a dog management game or dog pound management game that helps dogs get emotional attachment and help the dogs to find a new home. So our main goal is to make the players feel emotional bonds toward the dogs and help them find a new home and a good future.
Okay. So, oh, so just okay, animal shelter are quite rare for student projects, but it's something that exists a lot in like management simulator. I don't know, like what I saw one game like with exactly this title yesterday. Um, so what makes your project different than also on the thousand shelter game that exists?
Unlike other management games that kind of concentrates on points and like management and efficiency inside the management process. Our game kind of attach makes the players more attached to the dogs and feel more emotional bonds, and the players can directly interact with the dogs, and it will be more kind of emotionally discussed inside the game.
Yes, our game does, in comparison to other shelter management games, which is more about the cycle of and satisfaction of completing the management. Ours is more about the process of adoption and the emotional weight of it.
And so, what is the core experience you wanted to create?
The core experience was about learning to be sort of the cheerleader for the dog and the, as I said, rooting for the quite literal underdog.
And how you translate that into the gameplay?
So inside the core gameplay, we have a happiness gauge system. So the happiness gauge system is the core gameplay that kind of manages everything about the dog. And with the happiness gauge increase or decrease, the progression speed of the game kind of changes. So we kind of translate it with that factor.
Just could you give a bit more detail about that?
Yeah. So our game kind of contains more mini games, or we could manage the dog directly with mini games and trying to call the dog or feed the dog or kind of clean the dog. So with that features, the happiness gauge get inflicted with that. So with that, we could move on to the adoption phase, which kind of chooses the dog's future.
So just about that, because I think it will be connected. So managing a shelter is both like, balancing both like emotional and some practical concern. So how did you handle that duality in the design?
So as lots of general traditional management game, our game also has consistency of how efficient the coins or other kind of factors will be. So our game with our gameplay mechanisms, we have the action point system and the coin system, and all the mini games and the quick time events inside the game has different costs of action points and different risks and different difficulties of the game. So players should manage to balance between to do an efficient kind of way to manage the points.
So it was very important for us to prioritize not betraying the player by making it so grim all of a sudden at the end. So we wanted to like state the concept very plain and simply in the aesthetics that like, hey, you are a shelter owner, but very apparent in a very cute way. We're not trying to obscure anything from the player, so it's meant to be very clear despite the cute appearance.
Okay, and you took, I believe, like you may have some inspiration from other games.
Yes, we
Which-
took we took many inspirations from other games, um, in both visuals and in mechanics. In terms of the visual structure, we took inspiration from the mobile game Pet Buddies. In addition to their sort of chore um, structure and how they interact with certain objects in a visual space. We also took inspiration from Spiritfarer and how it is also about building bonds in a management sort of environment. And we also took heavy inspiration from Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator in how there are multiple phases, limited actions in order to create a space where you can manage things.
Okay. I would like to be a bit provocative. You think that there are a market for that? Or I mean, like, who is your target audience for this game?
So our target audience for this game is a number of people. We wanted to go after people who enjoyed just kind of cozier, low stress games, people who like animals, people who like managing things, and cute dogs.
We
Okay.
also-
Yeah.
We also wanted to there is like still an emotional weight to this game. It's not
Yeah.
the it's not meant to be like super grim dark way down on them, but there is an audience. It is for an audience of people who enjoy meaningful stories and building
Yeah.
connections with multiple NPCs and characters and wanting that sort of emotional experience. But if they do want a light, cozy game to just cycle through chores and stuff, that is also for them.
And so connected to both, like how did this audience, the fact that you target this audience, influence the your design of the difficulty and the progression system?
So we wanted to make the game approachable. So all the mini games are meant to be challenging enough to be engaging, but easy enough that they're not that stressful. It's all supposed to be manageable. We decided it would be about your limited resource would be managing limited actions instead of time, kind of to reduce players' stress and make it more about managing. Sorry, make it more about strategy and managing a limited resource rather than just trying to rush through the game as fast as possible. And then key visuals were obviously another major thing just to make it aesthetically appealing and easy to attach to. And then we also wanted multiple wanted NPCs. And we also incorporated NPCs with dialogue options to add a bit of a added narrative side to the game for those interested in that, and also make the player feel more like an active participant in where the dog gets adopted and kind of care about what happens to them afterward and feel satisfied with the resolution.
Do you have example? So you talk about the emotion and like you want player feel attached to the character. Actually, many players become attached to virtual character. But how in the game did you encourage this kind of emotional relation?
So we wanted to build this through the gameplay in how much the player considers where to invest their actions into a dog. And this is primarily done through like the limited amount of actions that they can invest, as well as the appeal of like engaging with the dogs, like playing with them and the visual aesthetic of the visual feedback of engaging with them, you know?
Yeah. And to add on that, a lot of how you bond with the dogs throughout the game is by getting you to getting them to follow you around and playing with them, having fun with them, getting annoyed with them when they don't obey you. And also another way we try to make the dogs seem more distinctive, more identifiable is um, by actually making the mini games slightly different depending on which dog you'll play with. So Goldie's more relaxed, so his games are a bit easier, while Pommy's more energetic and high strung, and so Pommy's games are a bit harder, and so that's a bit. And so that's there to kind of give the dogs more personality, make you more attached.
Okay, thank you. So now I want to go more in the why this project. So do you have any personal motivation to behind choosing the topic of animal shelters?
Yeah. So we are all a bunch of dog lovers. We all love dogs. Hyunmin was really invested in the struggle of abandoned dogs. Learns many cares about our dogs, and I have dogs. I've heard a lot growing up. Heard a lot of stories of things that portray shelters in kind of a very negative light, right? Like kind of like a prison for dogs almost. Just because shelters in the U.S. can sometimes be seriously overcramped and not great for dogs, and after a certain point, they can be euthanized if they're not adopted quickly enough. And caring a lot about dogs, and especially being an owner of rescue dogs myself, we were interested in kind of exploring what life was like for dogs, abandoned, neglected dogs in an animal shelter, and kind of showing how an animal shelter could also be a good thing, but also some of the challenges that come with that.
We really wanted to send the message of like, hey, these dogs deserve a chance. And one of the reasons why we chose specifically a shelter versus the story of an abandoned dog is we wanted to put the player in a position where they're already occupying the headspace of I need to care for these dogs so that they can apply that perspective to the real world.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning on the pitch, it was part of the discussion. Do we follow a specific dog? Yeah. So, have you done some research about the shelter and yeah, before starting development this game?
Yeah, so we generally focused more on it being an enjoyable game than like a completely accurate simulation of a shelter. So we didn't do a ton of research, but we did look into what condition. But we kind of in order to provide stakes, we did kind of look into what conditions in a shelter were like. What were some of the challenges? Found out that in some particularly overcrowded shelters, dogs can be euthanized after like 3 to 5 days if they're not adopted, which is extreme. But it also makes for a great way to add tension. So we kind of looked at some of the issues that were happening with dog shelters and kind of used them as a way to provide tension for the game.
Yes, specifically we researched the how many days the dogs had in a shelter on average very early on just to gauge how difficult it would be and how realistic we should make this game. We ended up settling on aiming for a week. It didn't pan out, but that was like an initial goal that we set because
Yeah.
even despite the 3 to 5 day research that we found because we thought that would make a better gameplay experience. However, it was very important that we were informed at least about what the real conditions were like.
Okay. And how long is the play session in your game?
So the play session is for a game we estimated 10 to 15 minutes about this game. So on inside our loop, we have many games. We need to take care of the dog, and we will build up emotional bonds, which will finally connect to the happiness gauge, which will be the mission, and it continues to the transitions to the interview phase where we could decide the dog's future directly. So, and actually the game mechanics are easy for, so we aim for a large target audience, so it's easy and it's very pickable. So we estimated it to be 10 to 15 minutes for now.
Okay, let's switch to the art direction. So what was your vision for this game?
So we wanted to prioritize a very appealing aesthetic, very cute and very soft and light. And we primarily did this by going for a very homemade pencil slash pastel texture and light pastel coloring. And because of this very simplistic type of art style, a lot of the communication would have to be communicated through shape language. And we drew inspiration from particularly Sanrio characters because they already have that sort of light, geometric sort of art style. And that's sort of what drove our direction for this game artistically.
Okay, and for the dog, you try to be like more targeting some realism or more like just like their personality? What how you did?
It was generally leaning more towards sort of realism, but due to the cartoonish art style, it um, is definitely a bit more animated in terms of like proportions and such. Very much trying to appeal to cuteness and the basic structures of the face. But shape language was also encouraged to kind of like sort of blend the breed of the dog alongside the personality, so that way they're kind of in tandem. If that makes sense.
And did you face any challenge when like try to create strong like a large variety of dog?
Yes, because um because of the amount of dogs that we initially targeted for, which was about 7 dogs, and the sheer variety of them, in addition to unique personalities and different mini games that we had, it was a lot of animations that we had to produce very unique animations for each of them. And um, since there isn't a lot of overlap between the different breeds, there was a lot less shortcuts that were afforded to that area.
When you think about the general art direction, the tone of the game, so I mean, because the game is like it could be a really difficult topic that you are addressing. So how you how did you establish the tone to have like to not be too much in the drama, to stay like how you establish the tone for your game?
You just kind of said it plainly. This is the shelter. The cute aesthetics are meant to communicate like, hey, this is meant to be like taken very lightly and softly, but we don't say this is going to turn out particularly better. This is meant to be like an actual shelter.
But I want to know more like how you balance like the seriousness of the theme and the fact that you wanted to keep the experience enjoyable.
I suppose we did put a lot of emphasis into not necessarily the tragedy and grimness and like, oh, this is terrible, but more like what makes it terrible is that these are like you built a connection with these dogs. You love these dogs, but this is something that needs to happen, you know? Like you can't really stop it. Unless like you unless you like made the right choices earlier. Like there are things that can be done, but it's more about the love that you have for the dogs and the love that the dogs deserve rather than the inherent tragedy.
Okay, so what kind of message finally you want to give to the player, or what kind of reflection you want the player when they play your game?
As for me, I think that players should be stepping away from the game being like, I want to like reach out to the people who can't, or people and dogs, like those who aren't able to help themselves, to be able to turn lives around that way. Dogs come into the shelter having nothing. They're abandoned, they're unloved, and they should be able to leave the shelter being very loved. And that's a miracle of its own.
And to add in, I want the players to feel more responsibility of dogs, and with the mechanical point, we kind of show the action points and the events gauge, which kind of establish responsibility. And also, I want to show the point of how the dog pound is reviewed with kind of another phase. So I want to also show the players how the dog adoption is established inside the dog pound.
Okay, thank you. About the narrative, is it like do you have like a strong narrative, or is the storytelling mostly emergent from your behavior into the gameplay? Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So the as you mentioned earlier, there are storytelling elements in the sense of there are multiple endings with multiple outcomes and dialogue choices for all the NPCs and characters and all that, but a lot of the story of the game is told just through the gameplay. It's playing with the dogs, it's cleaning with the dogs, it's bonding with the dogs. Your interactions with the dogs and the connection you form with them are kind of the crux of the story of the game.
Okay, do you have any example of a memorable story that emerged from the game?
Yeah. So one story early on is there's like this granny who has kind of fallen on hard times after uh her husband died, and she's really lonely. And then you have another dog, a golden retriever, who was abandoned by its owners and alone. And um, through your interactions, you can match them up, and the dog can find a new home, and these two lost mammals can uh, find each other and no longer be alone.
Okay. So I want to know, like, it's almost the end. So I would like to know, like, what was the most difficult uh, design problem that your team had to solve during the development? Do you have any something that's strong? A marble, maybe?
Yes. So, one problem we had while developing the game was it's kind of just managing all of our ideas. We had kind of a whole bunch of ideas in a lot of different directions, and uh, limit, and we kind of it took a while for us to focus them, but eventually we were able to nail it down and focus them and make a game that is concise and a little on a shorter end, but very enjoyable to play.
Another design kind of difficulty we faced was that our game is a pastel tone, a very cute tone, as is seen in the title screen. But we're kind of conveying a message that is kind of quite dark. Or there could be a bad consequences with the dog. So we struggle to kind of how to portray that kind of difficulties inside the game.
Okay. So looking back, is there anything you would like to expand or change or improve in a future version of the project?
Yeah. So in the future version of the project, so we have more dog. We want to have more dog traits, more dog personality, as the world has lots of dogs, and we also want to put more mini games and more cycles inside the game to make the gameplay longer and more dynamic. And for a more dynamic view for the narrative, we want to put in a kind of plot twist. So like making the adoption process succeed successful, but the outcomes could be bad. So like in real life, if you make adoption to a person who you don't know well, the outcomes could be bad. The dog could be treated wrongly. So we want to put that factor inside the game. So like as the adoption succeeded, but the outcome's bad, so that person is a bad person. We want to make kind of this dynamic aspects inside this game too.
Okay, thank you. So last question for our viewer. Actually, I will check if we have like some question on the chat. Sometimes it happens, but I wanted to know like where our viewer can play your game.
Our game will be published in HIO and our future development. When? So it will be posted at least this Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. So it will be in HIO and the future development will be updated inside HIO, and we all of us welcome for feedbacks and more improvements from the players.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for this really good project. So only one project this semester that was really special, but I hope the students still enjoy, and I hope you enjoy online if you are still watching. And see you next semester. Bye bye.